The gentleman next to me needs no introduction to the people who are watching because MR Rangaswami, you are the person to go to in terms of consult. Now with Indiaspora, earlier Sandhill, somebody who's written and seen the entire story of Silicon Valley as an entrepreneur, investor. Sir, thank you very, very much for your time and really appreciate you that in the thick of this APEC summit, you've taken a walk to the Union Square to come and chat with us here at CNN News 18. Thank you very, very much.
Anytime, Anand. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So my first question to you, where is India in the consideration set of the world as it's looking beyond China? How have we been able to sell our story? A candid assessment.
So everybody knows now it's China plus one, right? But there are many, many options when you say China plus one. Is it nearshoring? Is it friendshoring? What is it going to be, right? And in that context, I think India needs to earn its place. It can't just sit back and say by default we'll get business, right? And that's what India is doing, honestly. I think India is going out. The minister is here, actively soliciting and talking up India. So that's what it needs, right? So we need to really grab the attention of these companies that are moving from China to a second source and bring them to India. But that's the first part of the story. The second thing is actually executing on the ground,
Correct.
right? Can they get land? Can they get the factory built quickly? Will they have labor issues? How do they do that? Will they be able to import and export adequately? Is there going to be requirements to make in India some of the components? So all these, the devil is in the details, right? But that's where I think they can have an opportunity to smooth that process out. But they have to earn the right to be there, much like they have with Apple or a Micron. They've earned the right to get these companies. They just need to have that same zeal and enthusiasm. Just go down the 500 list, the Fortune 500, just go down, put SWAT teams on each one, go get them. That would be my...
But you're speaking to a lot of the Indiaspora. That
Right.
means entrepreneurs and people who are doing well are from the Indian diaspora. What is their sentiment itself, even before I look at the rest of them?
Yeah.
Because they themselves are a collective pool, can contribute significantly in terms of investment, in terms of opportunities, and in terms of spurring the India growth story. For them, what's your assessment? And I know you interact with them very closely. Can we, as a market, leapfrog into providing sustainable growth? Because the story is green growth, the story is clean economies or green economies. But we as a nation want to become a developed economy by 2047, get to about 35 trillion. Now, all of this, how are we going to be able to do? And from the Indian diaspora, what's the sentiment?
Yeah, I think there's a nice contrast and comparison between the Indian diaspora and India itself, right? We started Indiaspora 11 years ago. The Indian American community was just coalescing, maturing to a point, where we could make impact and have influence, right? India has been in the same trajectory, starting out 10 years ago as an economy, trying to get better, trying to improve, mature, and be more successful. So both of these have similar, trajectory lines. So the Indian American community is now the richest community in the U.S., 60 CEOs in the Fortune 500, 7% of the doctors, 10% of the IT workforce. We are really, and of course now playing a role in politics with the vice president and many others in the Biden administration. So as that has happened, you can look at India's trajectory, growing now to 3 trillion. The trade between US and India expanding from 100 billion a decade ago to like 200 billion now. So it's very similar trajectories. And I think the two working together can take this much better pace, much faster pace. And that's what we hope to do with Indiaspora. And that's why we had the G20 forum in conjunction. We were the designated diaspora group that the government invited to bring to India. We brought leaders from 26 countries. Imagine this, not just US, 26 different countries, Indian leaders, 300 people came to Delhi. We saw the Chandrayaan landing live, which was a huge boost for all of us of morale and credibility of India and gratification. Visited the Vice President of India. So again, we saw now this is the big difference that India needs to tell the world. 20, 30 years ago, India would dream small and poorly execute.
Correct.
Right? Now, you'll fast forward, India thinks big and executes big. What do I mean by that? Examples like the T2 terminal in Bangalore, one of the best terminals in the world, platinum LEED certified, on and on. You see the Geo Center that Mukesh and Neeta Ambani have created, world class. You look at now the Bharat Mandapam in Delhi, world class. We think big and we execute big. And that's the story that India needs to sell.
Well, thinking big is true, but if you look at deep tech, if you look at clean energy, even EVs, we are way behind compared to some of the other nations who have taken a giant leap. Now, we cannot match TMSC in terms of foundries and making semiconductors, but we want to get into the field of semiconductors, into deep tech. We don't have the capabilities to make EVs to the scale that we want to. Do we even have the kind of rare earth minerals? So all of these questions remain, along with, of course, the policy challenges. So can you dwell a little bit on that, and how can we negotiate?
I think this is where the diaspora can help, right? We have so many people in the diaspora, not just in the US, worldwide, who work on EV technologies, who work on tech. So we have that base, and that's the kind of support that the government needs to get in India to kind of rise this thing to a higher level, right? So I think that's a possibility. The second thing with EV is, you have to go find sectors where you can go fast.
Right.
And that's why I would say go fast in two-wheelers. Because you don't need really the connectivity you need to charge the batteries, the millions of motorcycles and scooters, and even three-wheelers, auto rickshaws and so forth. Let's go really quickly and fast on the two-wheelers, and then create the infrastructure for the three-wheelers, including battery production, including producing the EVs themselves, and building the plugging infrastructure India-wide. All that is going to take time. So I'd say show success in two-wheelers, and then let's use some of the diaspora leaders. There's so many of us who work in that sector. Let's do a summit with EV leaders of the diaspora in India and get this moving forward. And we're happy to kind of participate in that type of a gathering.
But you said 26 different countries, the representations were there. Are these nations big on the India story, or are they looking at the entire story over the last 9 years? Like you said, we're starting to think big, execute big. I say all that is good, but so is there a but there?
I mean, there has always been some skepticism of India. They've always said India is a land of promise and continues to be a land of promise. But I think that reality is there now, where you can see the economy grow at 8%. You can see it hitting 3.5 trillion. You can see it go to 10 trillion. So people can see that. And at the same time, other than China, the growth in the world has slowed. So all these Fortune 500 companies are looking at growth markets, and the top of mind is definitely India. So the story is there, the growth is there, the economy is growing, it's real, right? So how do you capitalize on that? Is really the
correct.
The
so how do we do that, and how much of a window do we have as a nation to be able to get onto that bandwagon? Because there are experts who believe we've got a window, and we've got to capitalize on that window. What do you think are one or two of the biggest deterrents or things that we need to change under the current government? And are things going to go on, a bit of a pause till the general elections happen?
I think this is the decade of India. I think a lot of things have, the perfect storm has been created where the sentiment is against China. I think the US-India partnership is really strengthened. So this is absolutely the decade for India to really take advantage and grow and be successful, right? At the same time, of course, there are challenges, but every country is going to have those challenges. But we shouldn't stop for elections. We shouldn't be, India should be really moving forward. And this is perfect. Look at APEC here. There are 1,000 CEOs who have come here to San Francisco. The ministers met so many of them. We hosted the minister on Monday to a great reception with both Fortune 500 companies and companies that are Indian managed tech companies. They were all there. And I think there's definitely a lot of enthusiasm. This is the time to capitalize and actually do deals.
So amidst all these CEOs who were there, everybody's been gung-ho. I've met a few of them. They're and some of them are actively investing, and they've seen rapid growth in terms of their foothold or, their presence on ground in India. But are there some things which you think that the government needs to really fix immediately? I'm sure you're making your suggestions, but is there a feedback that's also coming to you through?
I mean, we've given feedback over time. For example, there was an angel tax, can you fix that? Then there are new issues with labor, and so those are all, I think, been told to the government. And I think, like I said, you need to see more success stories like the Apples, where they have factories, they're doing well, and tell those stories. Tell those stories to other companies and deliver on the same way we delivered with Apple. And that's all I think people can ask at this time, is to get deals and execute. There's nothing else that India needs to do. Get some deals, execute.
Well, there are a lot of entrepreneurs in India, a lot of them who believe that they can do things there rather than looking outward to the world. They just need a bit of a push. Your final word to those young entrepreneurs there and those young minds who really believe. In fact, even here, I've met a few of them who say, why do we need anybody else's tech? Why can't we develop our own? I'm going to, help those companies fund some people who are innovators and trying to get them, and let us make it in India itself.
Right.
So your final message to those youngsters, those young minds.
Yeah, I would say with the young people, this is the decade of India. This is the promise. India has a great digital infrastructure. So if I'm focusing on things in India, I would focus on the Bharat story much more than the external story, because for the external story, to deal with things like AI and stuff, you do need Western help. But with the Bharat story, you don't need any help. The billion customers and consumers. So go after that story. But if you want to sell to the world, you also need help of Western capital, probably Western partnerships and so forth. So pick your situation, pick whether it's India or the US and go for it. There's no time like this. I've spent a decade in India, working with entrepreneurs and stuff. It's really good to see that excitement. And I really think this is the time to do it.
Well, thank you very much. So someone who's got such confidence on the India story, I think it just encourages all of us to believe a little more. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you.